This is Rob Tebbutt for Boxing Social in association with Betfred. Delighted to be joined by Shane McGuigan. We're here in Essex the day before Fight Camp returns. Shane, how you doing?
Good, mate. Yeah. Well, that's a bit close, isn't it?
It's exactly the same distance as I do every interview.
All right, mate. Yeah. No, I'm all good, mate. Got the weigh-in done. So, did an interview with DAZN. Just got absolutely fucking super soaked. But yeah, no, it's good, mate. Looking forward to tomorrow night. Everyone's weighed in, getting fed. Everyone's in happy spirits. So, looking forward to it, mate.
Now, before we move on, let's discuss Anthony Fowler's replacement opponent. First time we've caught up on camera since. You right there, mate? You enjoying that coffee?
Yeah, I can multitask.
Yeah, it was somewhat distracting, actually. Anyway, Anthony Fowler is now boxing Rico Mueller. What can you tell me about him as an opponent?
He's boxed in a world title eliminator against Jeff Horn at welterweight. He was a welterweight. He's now moving up, probably because he got a call 8 days ago or something. But he had a fight 2-3 weeks ago, I think it was. So he was already sort of fit and gone through a whole camp. So he was scheduled to box Conor Benn, I think maybe a year ago or something, as a sort of stand-in for Mueller, in case any of them got COVID. So yeah, he's good standard. Do you know what I mean? He's a typical European fighter. I wanted someone that kind of comes forward. Roberto Garcia tore his bicep, so that was a shame that happened. But I think this is a pretty credible opponent, and there's a big announcement on Saturday night that we have to get through this fight. And I want rounds. I don't just want a Fortea. I don't just want a. Adam Harper gave us rounds, but he was so within himself. Fortea was supposed to be slippery, trying to use your brain, but Fowlers blasted them both out. So I'd really like to be able to get some rounds, before going into October for a big fight.
We'll come on to that shortly. Just one final thing on that fight against Rico Mueller. It's 156 pounds. Just explain to people why and the reasons behind that.
Well, he is a welterweight moving up, but the fact that he got such short notice, when they did the check weight, he wasn't light enough. So you have to be within 3% of your weight, which is I think like 158.5. And I think he was over that, so the board wouldn't allow him to weigh in. This is Mueller, to weigh in any lighter than 156. So we could have weighed in at 154 and defended our belt, but there wasn't any discrepancy in money, and it's just no, you know what I mean. It's like Fowler did the weight easy, it was 155.5, but there's no point stretching yourself just to when someone else isn't doing the same thing.
Now, the fight that's being talked about all week, of course, is Billam-Smith. I'm not going to be bold enough to ask you if that's going to be the fight that's going to be announced on Saturday night, because I know you won't tell me. But let's say it is. How difficult a fight would that be for Anthony Fowler at this stage of his career? Billam-Smith, obviously, former world champion and boxed at a very high level.
It's a very tough fight. Billam-Smith is a very, very seasoned operator, a guy that is very intelligent pressure, got a good chin, got a high work rate, arguably should have won that last fight out in Russia. Slightly dubious decision. He had options to box someone like Tim Tszyu, and if everything goes to plan, because it is nearly there, but if everything goes to plan, then credit to him to box Anthony Fowler, someone that in his eyes might not bring a lot to the table. Yes, it's a big domestic fight, and it's also an inner city sort of grudge match. It will be scheduled as, do you know what I mean? I think Fowler's boxed Callum Smith like 2 or 3 times. He sparred Liam in the past, and I think that will get tasty in the build-up. Fowler is a bit Marmite. You either love him or hate him, and the ones that hate him, I'm sure, will be supporting Billam-Smith. So huge step up that people have been asking for a long time, but we just couldn't get the. Fitzgerald's been out the ring for a long time. We obviously want to avenge that loss. Ted Cheeseman, he had a grace period where he could have boxed anyone in the top 15, but he chose to box Troy Williamson, who was his mandatory, which kind of screams that he didn't really want to risk it, even though there would have been a lot more money in a Fowler fight. It just screams he knows that there's only one decision, and that's Fowler going through him. But we haven't proved that yet. Yeah, I mean, I can say it. I'm pretty confident in those things, but we haven't proved it yet. So, and Liam-Smith is a golf above Ted Cheeseman. So, we're really risking it to go in with Billam-Smith. But at the same time, it's a fight that I believe is going to burst him onto the scene. And I've seen enough in Liam-Smith, and I think Fowler's getting him at the right time.
If indeed it is that fight, as many people expect it as many people expect it to be. You mentioned there yourself about not being able to get Ted Cheeseman, Scott Fitzgerald, those guys in the ring. A win over Liam-Smith, who, again, he boxed against Cullum. I believe that was some sort of eliminator for a world title. A win over Liam-Smith would surely propel him past that, maybe potentially past European level.
I think so. I mean, it is. I'm sure it'll probably be scheduled as a world title eliminator. I mean, Fowler's highly ranked on all governing bodies. Liam-Smith is a former WBO champion. Boxed Canelo. He's boxed Jamie Munguia as well. He's mixed at the top level. He really has, and he's really earned his stripes up there. So that will be recognised throughout the world as if Anthony beats him, which I believe he will. That's huge kudos to Anthony. Do you know what I mean? It's just going to catapult him on. But at the same time, I wouldn't mind having a European title fight. I mean, Laranjas versus Sharat. I think it's in middle to end of September. We could get the winner of that, and then maybe a sort of Austin Trout sort of name, something like that, because it's a bit backlogged up at the top. Charlo versus Castano, is it his name? I think they're going to be boxing in a rematch, or one of the governing bodies might strip them, and then we have to be positioned well, because it'd be fantastic to pick up a belt.
Moving on, Chris Billam-Smith versus Tommy McCarthy. It seems like every day that it goes by, the hype and the intrigue around that fight grows bigger and bigger for the British, Commonwealth and European titles. As expected, both in tremendous shape today. Final thoughts on that fight, really. A lot of people, myself included, really looking forward to it.
I think it's look, there's obviously a bit of needle from Tommy where he obviously wants to prove himself. He's taken it upon himself to dislike me because whatever, because maybe my relationship with Carl or whatever, but it's all nonsense, really. I mean, at the end of the day, it's just down to Tommy and Chris that are going to be boxing, and I think there's mutual respect there between the two of them. I know Chris definitely respects him. I know Chris understands that it's a really, really hard fight, but it's a winnable fight. Is it a harder fight than Reactport? Absolutely not. For Chris, definitely not. Is it a harder fight than Craig Glover? It is, because he's got better movement. He's got he doesn't load up as much. He doesn't fight his way out of bad situations, but I think Chris is going to force him into doing stuff that he doesn't want to necessarily do. And Matty Askins beat him. Matty Askins hurt him. He got dropped and stopped by Reactpor. Chris is a hard puncher, and he's a volume puncher. So I think once Chris starts getting onto him and starts breaking him down, head and body, I can see a stoppage.
Lots been made about a supposed size difference that was kind of rubbished by Tommy McCarthy at the press conference, saying he was only half an inch taller. We're both going to weigh in the same way. Are you expecting Chris to have a size advantage in there, or certainly a physicality advantage?
Probably not. I wouldn't say a weight advantage, because I think Tommy will probably put quite a bit of weight on. Chris doesn't really put that much weight on, but he's lean. He's physically strong. Like he's a really good athlete, Chris. You can take him to a track do 400s. He does really well. You can take him to a track do 200s. You can take him to a track do 800s, or you could get him in the weights room. You can get him on the Versa climber. He can do a lot of things. He's a very good athlete. Can Tommy McCarthy do all those things as well as him? Definitely not. But we're not lifting weights. We're not doing sprints. We're not doing that stuff. It's about a skills sport, and that's something that Chris lacked at the start of his career. But now he's actually a really, really skillful guy. Sometimes he switches off. Sometimes he gets hit too much. Sometimes he's not consistent throughout the rounds, but when he's up for it, you see him step up. And I think the physicality will play a part in the second half of the fight. And I think if Chris actually wanted to stand back and have a boxing match with him, I think he could do that as well.
Spoke to Richard Reactport the other day, of course, a mutual opponent of both Chris and Tommy McCarthy, wins over both of them. Still waiting for him to return to the ring, but he voiced his interest in facing the winner of Saturday night. I'm sure Chris would love to avenge that loss. Is that a fight we could realistically expect to see?
Definitely is a realistic fight. I mean, I think he's got something going on with Dylan White. He hasn't boxed in a long time. Yeah, I feel for him because he's just been so inactive. I think he'd need one or two to sort of get back into the group. But it's definitely a fight that we could potentially look at. I mean, Chris really wants to avenge that loss. He feels that the inexperience really, didn't serve him well. When you're in there with the guy, you can't just look at the positives and what you did well. You also have to look at the negatives and what you didn't do well. And I think there was a lot of things that Chris didn't do well that night. And I think if we were to address those and box again, then there might be a different outcome. But he never was really out of his depth. He just struggled to pace himself. And if we could get it over 12 rounds, I think Chris would beat him.
Sticking with the cruiserweights, we were graced by the presence of the WBO cruiserweight champion himself, Lawrence Okolie, coming down to show his support for his stablemates. Are we any closer to an announcement regarding his return? Yeah,
it's looking like the AJ card. It's still not finalised yet, but it's going to be Prasovic, which is his mandatory challenger for the WBO. He wouldn't take step-aside money, so I think I've voiced this before with you. But it's one that, look, we're going to have to just get out of the way, and I'd like him to box on September the 25th and then out again before the end of the year in a unification fight. He wants to headline on a DAZN show. He wants to get his teeth stuck into this sort of atmosphere and be able to be a headline again. And the last time it was a headline on March the 20th with no crowds in this sort of, not studio, but you know what I mean, studio vibe. So he's going to be here on Saturday night. He'll be able to have a chance to sort of soak up that, even though it's going to be 400 or 500 fans, it's still able to soak up that atmosphere. And and I tell you what, there's going to be a hell of a lot of fans in Tottenham on just September the 25th. So yeah, he needs to knuckle down now with his training. He done 6 rounds of sparring on Tuesday, and he did another 6 rounds of sparring on Thursday with Daniel Dubois. So that's not easy sparring to jump straight back into. But the both of them are helping each other out because there's not a lot of heavyweights that really want to jump in and spar Daniel at the moment. So yeah, he's going to be fit and ready. And from then on in, it's putting it down to Eddie and saying no more mandatories because we can't waste time. He's huge for the weight. Not that he can't do it, he's just huge for the weight, and the incentive is to just become undisputed. As soon as that's done, we'll either potentially look at a bridgerweight option or we'll go straight up to the big boys.
Before we move on from this card, I wonder if you can help me. I haven't spoke to one person this week who's really sure either way how Jack Cullum versus Avni Yildirim's going to go. It's such a random fight with two guys that seemingly have polar opposite careers. Yet Jack Cullen is a 2-1 on favourite at the bookies. So I'm wondering if you can give me your breakdown of the fight. How do you see it going?
I mean, one's just boxed Canelo and the other one's just boxed John Dock. Is that his last fight? But one's coming off a win and the other one's coming off a pretty bad loss. So what a fall from grace that's going to be. You know, he's opening the show in Brentwood, and I think around 536 is a thunderstorm. So his last fight was in front of 60 or 70,000 in Miami, in front of the pound for pound best fight in the world. You know what I mean? The face of boxing for millions of dollars, and now he's opening the show against Jack Cullen. I mean, that's gonna have to play in Brentwood, of all places, in someone's back garden. So that's gonna have to play a big factor. Jack's always one of these guys he's always going to give a great account of himself. I watched Avni Yildirim spar in Miami against Curtis Stevens when I was out there with David, and I really wasn't impressed. Actually, when George went into the Super Series, I said, don't pick Jamie Cox, pick Avni Yildirim, because you'll absolutely punch holes in him and you'll knock him out. But there was a bonus for a domestic fight, so he said, I'm picking Jamie Cox. So, but yeah, I mean, if you ask me how it's going to go, I'm not sure, mate. I'm really not sure. It's like Yildirim's going down to middleweight. When was he last at middleweight?
Never.
Even though it's not 11.6, like it's 11.10, so it's 164. It'll be interesting. I think his punch resistance is gone, but can Cullen knock him out? I'm not sure. You'd have to go with Yildirim as the favourite just because of the calibre of his box, but he actually hasn't beaten anyone of merit in a long, long time. So I'm sitting quite high up on that fence.
Seems like everybody else is. I don't necessarily think it's fencing. I think everybody's just a bit still quite confused that the fight is actually happening. But anyway, moving on, of course, today we were, well, I say greeted. We had the news of Luke Campbell calling an end to his professional boxing career, somebody you've worked with over the last few years. First and foremost, what a great career he's had. He's given us some great memories both as an amateur and a professional, and I think I speak for everybody when I say that he should be extremely proud of himself.
Well, you just said it, absolutely. I think he took up boxing when he was like 11 or 12. I think he lost like 3 of his first 12 or something fights. Yeah, maybe more. Just shows you actually when you knuckle down and you don't give up and you start dedicating yourself. He was a chubby kid. You'd never think that now because he was one of the biggest lightweights possible. But dedicated himself throughout the years. I mean, like Luke's older than me. Like, when I was an amateur, I remember looking at him and thinking he was winning ABAs then. And at 54, he was massive for the weight. And like he was always never really appreciated. This was years before the Olympics. And then suddenly he just burst onto the scene. I think he was the first guy to win a European gold in a hell of a long time, maybe 20 or 25, 30 years or something like that. And then obviously he won the Olympics. He arguably is the most, I mean, he didn't win. I was having this discussion with Fowler the other day. He said, oh no, I don't think he was the most decorated amateur. I said, he surely's got to be because he won the Olympics and the Europeans I think a few times or whatever, and he just medalled in everything he went to, but he didn't win a Commonwealth Games gold. And I said, well, that's not classified a major, and I think Fowler thought that because he won one. No, he also won a world bronze, but no, it's a guy that's dedicated himself. It's a pleasure to be able to train him. Like my time with him was just brilliant. Honestly, like I love the lad. He's just a diamond of a lad. I'm gutted, and we always said this. We're just gutted that he didn't come to me after the Olympics, or and that's just a selfish thing because he did a lot of things wrong. I would have started him at featherweight, and then I would have pushed him to super feather, and then he would have filled into a lightweight. He just jumped in to a weight category that he boxed as a super bantamweight in the amateurs on the same day pretty much, and so weighing in on the same day, and then he just jumped the whole way to lightweight. It was a big gap, and he had bundles full of talent. It's probably one of the most talented guys I've worked with, and it's just such a shame that he never won like a major sort of fight into like a world title fight in the pros. I thought he it's hard to say. I mean, if he'd have boxed Linares in the UK, I think you would have favoured him. But obviously the knockdown swayed the fight. But with me, we had Yvonne Mendy too. We went to America, and then we boxed Lomachenko, and we boxed Garcia, and there was a lot of tough things to overcome. And we were scheduled on April the 19th or 17th to box Javier Fortuna for the world title. COVID happened, and then Devin Haney is now reinstated, and it's like, well, that's not fair because you'd already ordered that fight, and then that didn't get ordered, and Ryan Garcia jumped in. Do you know what I mean? We even got offered the Devin Haney fight, but it was like a third of the money that we could have got to fight Garcia, and in terms of his achievements, like as a professional, he didn't achieve what he was really capable of, but he got extremely well paid, and that goes a long way in Hull. You know what I mean? It really does. And he's a savvy guy. He's set up businesses left, right, and centre. He's invested his money well, and it's really nice to see. And he doesn't hold grudges. Like there's a lot of boxers and people involved in boxing that kind of get bitter and they hold grudges. And he didn't get the sort of world title. I mean, he got the world title opportunities, but they were against Lomachenko, who was a pound for pound best fighter in the world at the time. Linares, who was a 3-weight champion, he'll be a Hall of Famer. So you're like, and then he's boxed Ryan Garcia. I think he's really, really, really talented, that kid. But it's just chucking yourself back into it. He's 33. He's turning 34 in September. Like that's a long slog to reinvent the wheel, to get back, into like title contention. That's another year and a half at light welterweight, and I completely understand where his head was at when it came to that decision. I said to him, instantly he wanted to fight again, and then I said to him, leave it. And I mean, we spent Christmas Day together in Dallas in an Airbnb, fucking having like scrambled eggs and gluten-free toast. It was brutal, you know, and I could just sense it, just like I sensed it when I was out there with George in the Saudi fight. I just sensed that love for boxing had gone, and I felt the same thing with Luke out there. Obviously, he just had him and Lindsay had just had Levi, so he was only a few months old, and you know you're out there over Christmas, away from his kids. You got Leo and Lincoln that are still young kids that really wanted to spend Christmas there, and he'd been really well paid. So at that stage, you're doing it for accolades and not necessarily money. You know what I mean? And yeah, it's just timing. You know, the fact that he was 33 and he spent a lot of time in the amateurs, potentially spent too long there.
I think it's very well said. Just final one really on Luke. It's obviously completely different scenarios and situations to George. George kind of won his world title, then wanted maximum value, got that in the World Boxing Super Series. But it seems to me that Luke has left something on the table in a sense of he could have come back and could have fought, which is a better way. Admittedly, his last fight was a loss, but against Ryan Garcia, somebody who is touted to be a future star, he has still gone out at a very good level.
Oh, he's gone out at the top and dropped Ryan Garcia. Was giving a great account of himself. He wasn't as sharp as he normally is. We had 18 months off in between his last fight, and that was also a loss against Lomachenko. So you're going into a fight without a warm-up fight in a different territory in Dallas. He had COVID just before. You know, there's a lot of things like emotionally and mentally to overcome, and he did a fucking fantastic job in keeping it all together. But you know, I mean, George is a different scenario, and George did get over the line, but the both of them had fucking hard fights, mate. You know, Froch twice and Badu Jack, and then Lomachenko and Linares, you know what I mean, and then Garcia. It's like these guys are going to go down as really, like all of those fighters that I've mentioned are world class fighters. They're elite. They're not just world champions. They're like elite level world champions, and George and Luke never ducked anybody, and they were in boxing a hell of a long time, and I got them both at the end of their career. You know, it's but it was I wouldn't change it for the world with both of them, because I've made genuine two great friends there, and that's nice. It's nice to be able to sit, even though I saw just the tail end of the career. It's still nice to be able to be there, be a part of it. They'd seen the good sides of boxing and the bad, and then they appreciate things. And I think both of them would say that they appreciated their time in McGuigan's gym.
Okay, well, yeah, just to echo that once again, congratulations on a great career, Luke Campbell, and wish him all the best in the future. Shane, always a pleasure. Thanks very much for speaking to Boxing Social. I'm sure I will catch up with you sometime soon after the fights tomorrow night. Thanks, mate. As always, enjoyable one.